the insurrection, she like stayed up all night and put in those lines, and they just fit in perfectly, with everything she said. And I think what struck me too was the beautiful diversity. I mean, that is America. Um, every um, everybody was represented, and so I love that. I thought that Joe Biden did a great job. I thought that his words just went right to your heart and your soul, and and then Kamala she's an historical moment just in herself. So yeah, I just loved it. And I've been to Washington so many times because my son went to Georgetown Law School, and he lived there for a while. Now they're in Bethesda, so I in Washington all the time, and it's just beautiful to see the scenes of such our beautiful city, the nation's capital, and then all of the music. Everything was just so lovely, and it's kind of not yet, not totally, but it's erased like a 4-year nightmare. Oh
yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I did think it was a little disconcerting to see all of the troops, the barbed wire with the razors. My kid lives there, and that was disconcerting. I can't think of another word. Paul, I see you have your hand up.
Well, I was going to agree with what Marcia said about the diversity. My prayer is that the 70 million people who do not see it that way, to us, we see beauty in that. And my prayer is that we can move somewhere toward more acceptance as a nation, that is who we are and who we will be. And that, yes, it's beautiful and it's not threatening. The only thing I can compare it to is if you have a child marry out of your faith and you're very worried that your beliefs are going to get diluted. And in a healthy family, that doesn't have to happen. And in a healthy nation, it doesn't have to happen either.
That's I've never thought about it that way. It's really fascinating. Susan?
So one of the things that I was watching it this morning with my daughter, and one of the things we both noticed was we thought that Joe Biden did, well, first of all, I think he was just extraordinary.
Yeah.
He said all the right things, everything that we needed to hear. He didn't leave anything out. But one of the things I thought was very cleverly done was he really managed to attack Trump's ways in a very subtle way without ever mentioning him, without ever mentioning the previous administration. He didn't say it, but you knew exactly what he was referring to. But it was very subtle, and I thought he did a great job. And I think that needed to be brought out.
Agreed.
But he did it in such a beautiful way.
yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, agree.
So,
I think sorry.
Ahead, Marcia.
I was going to say, I think to have ignored it would have felt like, how can you ignore what happened? But everyone that made reference to it, as you said, Susan, did it very subtly, so that we all knew what he was referring to. And it wasn't just the insurrection. It was, every day was an insurrection. Every day was an assault on American values, every single day. So, it's like when they go low, we go high. Everything that he said, and all of the people who sang, and it was like transcend, rising above what we've been, what the country's been through. And I also liked the emphasis on unity and together. And even though, as Paula said about the 74 million that voted for him, and for people who still feel that they've been cheated out of, I don't want to say the word president, I'm referring to him, but hopefully when they start to see changes and, no more chaos and insanity, and they start to see some organization and some, commitment, just the beauty of their commitment to make us a more perfect union. Hopefully, some, you'll never get all of them, but some will start to come around.
Pam, did you want to say something?
Well, I want to say it was totally beautiful and moving, and I was so happy that it took place. And I've been lucky enough to have gone to 2 inaugurations. I went to Ronald Reagan's first one, and I went to, I mean, in the crowd, but
Yeah.
still being there. And so this was very special because just the different angle from it, it's so nice to, it's actually almost better to see it on television. You can see so much more. So excuse me.
So here's my question to you all. Do you think Trump watched it?
Absolutely.
Oh, you think he did?
I think absolutely. I think
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did.
I think he's such a small-minded soul,
and probably
yeah.
Wait, Marcia, let Paula finish.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Paula.
Yeah. I'm sure because of his personality disorder and his need to see the respect that somebody else got and not understand why he didn't get what he thought he should have. I mean, he has a true personality disorder. I mean,
Absolutely.
He's such a narcissist. I don't think he could keep himself away from this. I tried. Oh, I'm sorry. I did try to Google his going away ceremony this morning because I certainly wouldn't get up and watch it. And when you're ready, I would ask if anybody knows about his send off.
I saw it.
Okay.
So tell us, what were you going to say, Marcia, and then tell us. I
was just going to say, I'm sure that he watched it, but if you compare, his words were just so rambling and so, he kept bragging about the vaccine, which nobody can get, and he did say he wishes the new administration, he never mentioned Biden, he never congratulated him. I wish them luck, and they have the foundation we built to build. I mean, it was disgusting, but I have to tell you, I did see it. It was a piece of history to see them march out of the White House and get on the helicopter. And someone brought out some bags of theirs before and put them on there. And he spoke to the press briefly, didn't take any questions. They did take him on a tour of the city so he could see what all the setup for the inauguration. So they circled around before they went to join Base Andrews. Is that what it's called?
Andrews Air Force, yeah.
Yeah, Air Force. And then when they got there, there was some ceremony. The band was playing this loud music, and I have to tell you, I muted my TV when they played "Hail to the Chief" for the last time, because after hearing it played for Kennedy and even the last horrible, poignant time for Kennedy, and hearing it played for Obama, I couldn't deal hearing it played for him. So I did mute it for a while. But as I said, he just rambled on about his accomplishments. Everything's about him. So I think it was good he wasn't there. As Biden agreed with that, because he had 3 former presidents there, and that was the transfer of power. He didn't need someone who just totally denigrated the office, just destroyed democracy every minute, trashed the Constitution, enriched himself on, the White House. I call it his piggy bank. And, so it's like, it was like good riddance and, on with looking forward.
Well, Marcia, I will say the fact that you even watched it, I was so aggravated and annoyed at all the cable news and the networks for even carrying it this morning when he was leaving.
Right.
He should have been ignored, because that's all he wants is attention.
Yeah.
And you speak right into him when you give him attention. And I didn't like it at all. And after the helicopters left, I just turned it off. I didn't want to hear him speak because it makes me want to vomit.
Yeah. Well, it is sickening. The whole thing is sickening. What he did, and the culmination of what happened on the 6th is the culmination of that's his legacy to me. But I have to tell you that what John King, are you familiar with John King of
Yeah.
CNN? Yeah. He said there a lot of people emailed him and tweeted him and everything, not to cover him anymore. But he said he's still president, and we feel that it's our duty to still, as long as he's still president, to cover his last moments and his send off. So I did force myself, but I said I muted the hail to the chief, and when his rambling got too obnoxious, I muted, then do that. I said, it's so nice that I won't have to run and press the mute button every minute when the president is speaking. But
I agree, Marcia, I agree with you. And they had said last night, they knew it was going to be rambling because there was no teleprompters. So Trump, no teleprompter is like, a toddler with nobody watching him. Paula, what did you want to say?
Well, yes, Trump without a teleprompter is stream of consciousness, and he's functionally, I think, illiterate. I really think he's functionally illiterate. I think he can read, but I don't know how much he really comprehends.
But I think he reads it about, I don't know, I was a primary grade teacher.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think that he reads at about a 3rd grade level.
Yes.
I think a 5th grader has a better vocabulary. He says the same thing. It's tremendous. It's terrific. I mean, he doesn't have, if you can't compare him to any other president. When you hear Obama, have you all seen like The Way I See It?
Yeah, by Pete Souza. It's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. I recorded this last time so that I would have it for posterity.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
You can't compare. This man can't speak, or to me, like, or if you remember Kennedy's speeches, they were just so right on. Another president that I couldn't listen to was not because he was uneducated, but it just, his style bothered me, was Bush. So I had trouble listening to him too, but I think, to me, he's like a genius compared to, the idiot in the White House, as Colbert called,
yeah, Paula, what were you saying?
I was watching ABC's coverage of this, and each of the commentators spoke about how Trump has shamed himself for not coming to this inauguration. And that, history will not look upon this kindly. And Pence kind of pulled this off, okay.
Yes,
and
he did.
Not a fan of Pence, but he kept himself clean.
No.
Well, at least he was a gentleman.
He was a gentleman. He supported the Constitution. At no point did he cave into this stuff.
No.
And I know that he has aspirations for the future as well. And that's motivating a lot of these guys. But I do believe he's a rule follower, and he did it. And,
Joe Biden, when Trump said he wasn't coming like a week ago, Biden said, that's the one thing we agree upon. How uncomfortable would it have been to have Trump and Melania there with the Obamas and the Bushes and the Clintons?
Right.
I mean, he is a pariah, and maybe it was better that he wasn't there.
I think it would change the whole dynamic if he was there. It would have just made it so, especially after 2 weeks ago, I don't see how he could have been there. Really, I think it was his only gift to the nation was not showing up.
If he had been there, it would have been all about him.
That's right.
That's exactly what would have happened. It would have been all about him.
That family makes themselves the victims. Make themselves the victims, and nothing is ever their responsibility. It's always somebody else's fault.
Well, think about what's going to happen the next time, something like this happens where all the presidents gather. Can you imagine him amongst all those dignified men?
No.
He won't come. He won't come.
He won't come.
Yeah.
Because he refused to be photographed with former president. He won't come anymore. I don't think, especially if he's convicted. It's a long shot, but it's a possibility. So
Right.
then he'll never show up anywhere.
I'd like to see him obviously be removed from ever holding a federal office again. I'd also like to see him stripped of that $1 million a year travel allowance, because he can do a lot of damage internationally on $1 million a year.
Agreed.
Fringe
Agreed.
group, with fringe groups following him
Right.
on whatever third-rate network he's going to start on his own, or some. But all these newscasters are saying it's a relief to just think that tomorrow we don't have to worry about some crazy tweet that he sent out
Right.
in the middle of the night, that we could just. And
Right.
today, how fast it felt normal again. It felt normal.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been waiting for this day, since
For months,
November
for 2 months,
2016.
everybody's been in limbo.
Yeah, and I heard him say that he's thinking about starting the Patriot Party, which
Okay.
the thing that does concern me is that I listened to the podcast, The Daily, and they've talked to his people, and his
Yeah.
people are this, one of them said, if Biden had won legitimately, I'd be okay with that, but he stole it. And they believe this lie. So
Yeah.
until, and will they listen to McConnell? Will they listen to, I don't know, but someone has to say that was a lie.
If we can have
Marcia, and then Paula.
warriors. Yeah, sorry.
You're muted, Marcia.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was going to say, first of all, it's so ironic. The Patriot Party, for the most unpatriotic president in history. And I've been saying that all along from the beginning, from November 7th, that the unpatriots in Congress, all they had to do was say, the president can, ask for recounts or whatever in certain states. But in the meantime, congratulations, Joe Biden. And then after the safe harbor, even they wouldn't acknowledge it. Then they just sort of said he won it fair and square. It's been tried, tested in the courts. It's been, there were 3 recounts in Arizona and 3 recounts in Georgia. I mean, and then to still say it was stolen, and the Congress encouraging that. I mean, they're all as guilty. Everyone that kept saying that is just as guilty for January 6th.
I agree. Paula, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that one of the messages I heard today from President Biden was that truth telling is going to be the focus of the next 4 years.
Yes.
And we're not going to perpetuate an untruth.
Right.
And, we can move quickly toward truth.
Yes, this is what he said. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. And I think, Susan, you said at the beginning that he called Trump out without saying his name.
That's right. I'd like to see Hawley and Ted Cruz disbarred or removed from office, because I consider their actions traitorous.
Agreed.
And along with everybody else who signed to continue that facade after the vote was taken.
Actually, do you know, last night I heard
Susan and then Pamela.
Last night I did hear Mitch McConnell say that they were lies.
Yes.
He did say it.
Yeah, he did.
Yes. And his speech.
I mean, too little, too late, if you ask me, but at least he finally came around. But see, he wants Trump to disappear.
And he doesn't want to lose control of the Republican Party. I think he'd like to try to salvage what's left of it. Because I think we're going to have 3 parties. Because I don't think, this is not the Republican Party that they all signed up 2 years ago.
No.
This is Trumpism right now.
Right. Pamela, then Marcia.
So, but what about the responsibility of the media? I mean, what are we going to do about Fox News pumping and all the other, spin-offs, pumping these people, making their ideas legitimate? I mean, what are we going to do about that? How are we going to hold them accountable?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's a great question because they talked about Nixon and in the time of Nixon, but there was no Fox News with Nixon. There was, and I do think throwing Trump off of Twitter and closing down Parler was a step in the right direction because they just amplified their lies. Marcia, what did you want to say?
Oh, I was going to say, I agree with you. And they said that once they cut Trump off of Twitter and his other social media, the misinformation went down 73%. Can you imagine, the lies that he's told every single day?
30,000.
But I have to tell you about Mitch, because someone, a friend of mine from Evanston, emailed me the New York Times article, which I read myself, but that Mitch might actually be leaning toward conviction. And I emailed him back and I said, Mitch, the Grim River with the ice in his veins will only do what's politically expedient, and that all he cares about is power, pushing through unqualified extremist right-wing ideologue judges that we're stuck with for decades, and having everything like justice and policing and voting rights and prescription drug lowering and gun safety is all sitting on his desk for 4 years. I mean, he just won't even bring it to a debate. So to me, yeah, I'll give him credit if he convicts, but I hope he never gets control of the Senate again, and also what he did to Obama and Merrick Garland. I mean, he will obstruct as long as he thinks that it pleases his base. He's in the pocket of the NRA. Sorry, I'm not going to go on about Mitch.
No,
but
you're preaching to the choir, Marcia. I mean, what if we would have had someone who didn't agree with us? This was on someone's Facebook page today. Trump gets his military send-off. That's Captain Crunch, the general, and the colonel from Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I absolutely agree with you, and they're all, Lindsey Graham is calling for unity so that we can move on. But I think, and when you hear CNN and when you hear, these broadcasters who are supposed to be impartial say, they have to be held to task. That insurrection was dangerous and scary. And the more we find out about it, the scarier it gets. And hopefully, and I think even as we talk right now, Biden is signing things into effect. We're going back in the Paris Accords. He'll talk about, hopefully Chuck Schumer will let all of those bills come out. I mean, they have a lot to do because if they're going to impeach Trump, and they have to now approve all of his cabinet people. They've got a lot of work ahead of them. A lot of work, just so much work ahead of them.
Yeah.
So, and it'll be interesting to see how all of that just lays out and what happens, and how it'll be fascinating. Other things that Biden said was, we've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. And, another one, here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days you need a hand. On other days, we're called upon to lend a hand, and that's how it has to be. That's what we want. That's what we do for one another. And do you think the other side will be able to do that? That's
I think that Biden's experience over close to 40 years will be an enormous advantage. And as much as he was not my really first choice for the candidacy, I think he is the best choice for the time that he has. And I have tremendous admiration for the soul and the heart of the man, that he felt called to this from a higher power, really.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes.
And I think that if anybody can do it, you could see already from this morning the respect that he has from his peers.
Yes.
Something that Trump did not have. You can't demand respect.
No. And that he is a man of faith. He started off this morning going to pray, and Chuck Schumer, who's Jewish, went with. That's as did some Republicans. I don't have the list of who went. I could Google it. But that's an act of faith and an act of, it was bipartisanship that they all went together. And he is deeply a man of faith.
And I don't find his faith offensive. It's not threatening.
No.
Remember when everybody was worried, could we have a Catholic president when
Kennedy.
Kennedy, remember?
Mhm.
It wasn't not a problem. It shouldn't be a problem.
They thought at that time people thought the Pope was going to be running our country.
Right.
Right.
Well, I have to tell you a funny story about that. I'm from the Catskills. It's in New York, the Catskills, the Borscht Belt. You don't know it, but anyway,
we know it.
We know all
it's
about it.
where all the comedians got started, Buddy Hackett and all that. Well, I grew up, people would say, you don't actually live here. Nobody lives here. But anyway, it was a liberal pocket of, 90 miles from New York City. My parents both my father was born in Jersey City, but raised in the Bronx, go Yankees. But anyway, so, my mother was right away, loved Kennedy, and everyone loved Kennedy, and as I said, it was a liberal pocket. And then all this hate mail started coming about the Pope running the country and can't elect a Catholic. And I always grew up. Kennedy was elected on my 15th birthday, and I always felt that was like a gift. And so the liberal pocket galvanized, just like the people of Georgia, the Georgia voters did, and went in droves to vote for Kennedy because they knew how it felt to be be persecuted because of your religion. So, so I always felt that, like, hopefully, I guess most of the country felt like that because he did get elected.
Yeah, I mean, this time it wasn't even a
non-issue.
It was a
It was a non-issue.
Non-issue.
An absolute non-issue.
Yeah, but it was in 1960. Susan's right. It was an issue for a lot of the country, and I was always confused by that because, as I said, in my liberal pocket, nobody, even though it was like 95% Jewish, we would go to the Baptist church dinners, and everybody loved everybody. So there wasn't that it was never, nothing was, race and color and religion was not an issue.
Right. This is the psalm that he shared. O Lord, thou broughtest up my soul from the netherworld. Thou didst kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing praise unto the Lord, O ye his godly ones, and give thanks to his holy name. His anger is but for a moment, his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy cometh in the morning. And I appreciate that. Right. And I can see, I took this from someone's tweet, but I can tell that it's from Safaria, which is like a Jewish text thing. Some rabbi immediately recognized it, and then I took it. The other, Susan, did you? No, you were just waving.
Yeah, no, I was waving goodbye. My son-in-law was leaving the room, so I was waving too. But I'm very lucky that my daughter and son-in-law are here with me, staying with me, so that I'm not alone, which is really wonderful.
Absolutely.
I'm so lucky to have them. But I was going to say, we're all now focusing on Biden versus Trump and the Republicans. I think that Biden is going to also have a problem with the Democrats, because as much as we can't stand the far right, hard conservative Republicans, the extremists on their side, on the Democratic side, we have our very far left-wing extremists also, and some of them who are very anti-Semitic. And I think that is something that needs to be discussed and that we need to concentrate on also.
I actually picked up an article, and I think this is fascinating. I'm going to share my screen for 1 second. New anti-Semitism hates Jews, loves Israel. And this is from the Jerusalem Post. For anyone for whom Zionism and humanism are important, it's hard to think of a more disturbing connection. For anyone, I think that this is absolutely fascinating. I don't know why it keeps moving around like that. So, Trump and his playbook have become a model for an entire network of nationalists, racists, narcissists, and that also includes Orban in Hungary, Bolsonaro in Brazil, and others around the world, but also the Israeli right. Moreover, the Israeli flag has been appropriated as one of the symbols of the struggle of those authoritarian populists. I think that I brought up last week, well, maybe I didn't. You can remind me. When Soros, when Adelson died,
Mhm.
he gave the Republican Party, I don't want to say billions, but maybe $1 billion. They gave them so much money, and maybe he could be credited with Trump's, ascent. But he also gives a lot of money to Israel and birthright, and he's was Jewishly philanthropic. And how do we, justify that? And how do we, not just in the Democratic Party, but within the Jewish community, we have a ton of people, not a ton, but we have more, I think, than we imagine of people who supported Trump. And I think they may have been embarrassed by it. Sometimes they spoke up, sometimes they didn't. And of course, I've said before that, I'm talking about my feelings. I'm not representing Macomb in any way, shape, or form. So how do we try to bridge that gap? Whether it's in the Jewish community, in the Democratic Party, or reaching out. Paula, go ahead.
Well, I think unity is going to have to be a move toward the middle. It can't be any more left or any more right.
I agree.
I think we're just going to have to find some common ground that we can build on. The problem, I think, for American Jews for a very long time is very difficult to be critical of Israel and not have people feel that you're making an anti-Semitic remark. I think you can still have a great love. And like a parent, you could be unhappy with your child. It doesn't mean you don't love your child. You may not like their behavior. Israel's not perfect in the way they've handled everything. And that's a slippery slope to you could have 9 classes on that.
Yes, you could.
So yes, we have danger from the far left here, definitely. But we're going to have to tame some of this down to try to move forward.
Yeah.
I like what he said today also, like, you can protest, you can disagree, but not with violence. Look at Stacey Abrams. There's the perfect example of channeling your loss into something really, really great. And, we have to figure out how to, I was a one issue voter. Mine is a woman's right to choose. Other people are a woman's right to not even be exposed to having an abortion. And maybe that's part of the 70 million voters that I don't understand. But that may be as dear to them as the issue was to me on the opposite side. I don't know. It's very complicated.
It's very, very, very complicated. I like to watch The View, and I think, Marsha, I'll get to you. And I like to hear what Meghan McCain has to say, because she's got a different viewpoint. And I think it's important, we're in these silos. On Facebook, I see, my friends agree with me. And on Twitter, you follow people who think like you do. You have to broaden your horizons. And, she is, I think, a one issue, the right to life. She likes Joe McCain. Joe got along with her father. She hated Trump. Of course, Trump picked on John McCain mercilessly even after he died. So, you know, we have to agree to disagree. And I think Joe did say that this morning. Marcia, what did you want to say?
I was going to say that a lot of, Jews for Romney and maybe for Trump too, their one issue is Israel, and I think it's a mistaken thing to think that only Republican leaders are pro-Israel, because I mean Obama did not get along with Netanyahu, but Netanyahu actively campaigned against him for. I mean he just did not want him to be president, and so and I went to Israel in 2012, right before the election, with a friend, and we didn't talk to each other for a few months after, because she said, I'm a one issue. I'm for Israel, and Obama's not for Israel. Only Romney's Israel. And then she would find tour guides, and I left the tour. I couldn't stand it because he started berating Obama, and I was thinking, I don't want to go on a tour guide with an Israeli who's, denigrating my president. So, so I think that, people are one issue, and they're able to, people said to her, what about a woman's right to choose? What about, equality of marriage? She said, I don't care about any of that. I only care about Israel. And I don't think that Obama's for Israel. So, and I think
Which
that
wasn't true.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paula, go ahead.
In the last election, I happened to be among the people who did not like Hillary Clinton. Did I vote for Donald Trump? No, I voted for Hillary Clinton. I didn't have to go to lunch with her. I didn't have to be in this discussion group with her. I felt she could run the country. I felt that she had years of experience, and that her pros outweigh the cons that were in my mind. I don't think people make educated choices like this. I think they're knee-jerk reactions. And, you got to watch Fox News. You got to watch what the other people are listening to. You have to inform yourself.
I occasionally go to Fox. I can listen to the news. I cannot listen to their panelists because it's just the amplification of the lies.
No.
My son was a Bernie bro, and when Bernie lost, he voted for Hillary. And I saw many memes saying, when you vote, it's not like you're getting married. You vote for the person who gets you closest to your ideals. You don't have to live with them. They're not in our group with us, Paula. I love that. And, people lose sight of that. People absolutely lose sight of that. Susan, did you want to say something?
I was just thinking about what Paula said about why she voted for Hillary. And I remember at the time, because I have a friend who didn't vote for president in 2016 because he didn't like either one of them. And she happens to live in Arizona. And I said, by what you did, you voted for Trump without realizing it.
That's right.
And I said, I understand that you didn't like either one, but the fact is one of them was qualified and one wasn't. So you have to pick the lesser of the two evils and vote for at least the person who's qualified. And kudos to you.
I mean, that election was strange because it wasn't even close. It was like some buffoon versus a woman that had, 30 years of statehood. It was just crazy. But the thing is, think how scary that is. He was elected. The problem hasn't gone anywhere. I mean, we're still really in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, Marcia, your friend who didn't vote in that, did she end up voting for Trump?
We didn't discuss it, but from our discussions, what we went around it, I had a feeling. So she said, well, Hillary wasn't that great either. And all I said, because I didn't want to start up again, all I said to her was, a lot of people didn't vote for either, but I'm sure she voted for Trump because I'm sure she felt that he was better for Israel. I don't understand that mistaken notion, but I just have to tell that, some of the stuff that Hillary had done in her life. Unfortunately, because the longer you are in politics, the more baggage that you come with. But it wasn't just that she was the lesser of two evils. She was good. She knew how to govern. She knew diplomacy. She got along with people,
That's why I voted for her.
foe and friend alike all over the world. I mean, our country would have been so much better shape.
Think how she would have handled the pandemic. I mean,
Yeah, right. And she would have handled the pandemic. I totally agree. I just don't understand some of this crazy convoluted thinking. And you have to take everything, just like the article that Vanessa gave us to read about, if you're Jewish and you voted for Trump, how did you feel when he denigrated, and mocked the disabled reporter? How did you feel when he caged children? That was my pet peeve, is the cruelty to children. That it's not just violating law, it's cruel, it's immoral. And that was my pet peeve. That's what I want to. So hopefully they'll keep looking for those, to put those families together. There's still 611 families, separated. So anyway.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do DNA tests because those kids were babies. How could they know? And that
recognize the babies will recognize the parents for sure, and the parents may not even recognize their own child if they haven't seen them.
It was no
child
record.
changes so much in 2 years.
Yeah, that's why, Jacob Soboroff, I love Jacob Soboroff, and he wrote that book, Separated: Inside an American Tragedy. And people can't say it didn't happen or it wasn't that bad, because he was there. He was inside there. Somehow he was able to get in there, and he saw children drinking out of toilets. I mean, to me, it was the closest thing to concentration camps that you can get. Anyway, it's heartbreaking. I would go to sleep with tears, because it's heartbreaking.
Yes, Susan.
I just read an article, a long article in the New York Times Magazine this past Sunday, talking about the transition, and there were two very good long articles. And one of them brought up something that I did not even know, and I don't know how many people know this, but before the 2016 election, there was a luncheon in Moscow, and sitting at the table with Vladimir Putin was Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate.
Oh yeah, I know.
Jill Stein got enough votes from the 3 states
That's right.
that gave the election to Trump, that had she not been there and gotten those votes in those states, Hillary Clinton would have won that election. She would have won the Electoral College. And so you wonder, what did Putin promise Jill Stein? What kind of whatever, money or advertising or whatever he did to help her, so that, knowing for sure she could not possibly win this election, but she could take votes away from Clinton.
Great point.
I was appalled when I read that.
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God, it just goes, look at Ralph Nader ruined it for Al Gore. Third party candidates, I don't know why they do it.
Well, the only thing we can hope is that next time the third party candidate will be Trump. I did want to show you John Ossoff. There he is with Raphael Warnock. And his Bible that Ossoff used was, it was Hebrew scriptures. One second. Around. That belonged to the historic Atlantic Rabbi Jacob Rothschild, a civil rights activist and a close ally of Dr. King. So I thought that, and I'll show you also now a picture of, I looked up Rabbi Rothschild because I had never heard of him. And so that I thought was, that was interesting. We saw the Biden giant Bible that he used. I mean, that was a Bible. And there's Rabbi Jacob Rothschild. So I thought, that I thought that was great that John Ossoff used that.
It's a shame.
And
It's a shame that that installation of those two gentlemen really got pushed to the side with all of this.
right.
'Cause it's enormous.
Right.
They're
I also said that Merrick Garland, he was announced the morning of the insurrection. Like he
That's right.
cannot catch a break. He can't
Nope.
catch a break.
Nope.
Susan, what were you going to say?
Nothing. No, I said
Oh.
what I had to say.
It'll be
Oh.
fun to watch him catching all the bad guys, though, Merritt.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're going to be sworn in today, right?
They were.
Kamala's going to swear them both in today.
Yeah.
Ossoff and Warnock.
And the other thing that I thought was unbelievable was this poet laureate, Amanda Gorman.
Yeah. She stole the show.
Yes,
It was incredible.
it was incredible.
It was beautiful.
I couldn't find the whole thing, but I did find a little part of it, The Hill We Climb. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. And I think we're going to see more from her. She was something.
Her voice,
Magnificent.
not only her
I
words.
think you can find the whole thing because I just Googled it and it came up. The Hill We Climb. Yeah.
Well, I was Googling, like an hour ago, and because I said to my husband, he goes, well, do the poem. I said, and it was a long poem. So, hopefully, and I think after January 6th, she added.
That's what they said that night.
Yeah, she did. She did.
Right.
Her poise and her presentation for such a young woman in a national format like that was
22 years old.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, she's just darling. She's just so charming, and her. It wasn't just the words; it was her presentation. I agree. I think that she just about stole the show and is a total rock star.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My last picture is my granddaughter. I'm gonna start crying.
Oh,
look at that.
Yeah, watching the inauguration.
That is awesome.
Yeah. That's a showstopper.
Yeah.
And that's our hope. I do have though do you think like it was a cavalcade of stars, J-Lo and Lady Gaga and Garth Brooks, and do you think that turns off, all of those, Trump supporters and, who say
Garth Brooks is a Republican, so I think
that's why I think Garth was there.
I think that's why
Biden chose Garth to be there.
I think so. And so maybe it's to capture the youth, to connect people to this, momentous presentation of how our history goes past from one president to another. I don't know. The star power, is it like the Super Bowl? I mean, I don't know. Is that a uniting experience? I'm not sure.
Say when Lady Gaga was sashaying out there with that huge red.
She's Lady Gaga. I mean, I expected.
I know she is, and I know.
I mean, I expected Gaga.
I can see
kind of what
a turn off to some people.
Yeah.
I can see that it would just be like, oh, what is this? This isn't supposed to be about you. This is supposed to be about him.
But the minute she started to sing, it was about all of us.
It's a beautiful voice.
Then it was about everybody.
I think that's a generational thing, because I talked to my mom and we said how beautiful Jill Biden looked, and all the women were gorgeous. And then she goes, oh, that Lady Gaga. I go, Mom, the young people, they seem to like that. So that was definitely, and her voice is beautiful.
I gave away my age.
Voice is magnificent. And I think her intent was pure. I think she wanted this to be this moment where we were all together listening to the.
I agree.
Agreed.
But I also think when we
I
talk
just,
about
All right, Pam and then Marcia.
the fundamental problem and how we're going to solve it, I really believe simple things like putting civics back in the classroom and
No
teaching
kidding.
history. I mean, no offense to us and the generations, right behind us, but it's really going to be about the children and the next generation. I mean, let's face it, no one's going to change those people that were breaking into the Capitol. No one's going to change their minds. I think we should put our energy into really, our education system and softening it and getting back to basics. I mean, right? I didn't have a decent civics class, when I went to school, and anything that I just watched, a 4-piece series on the vote, on American Experience. I can't believe all the stuff that I learned. I had to go back and read a book. I took a women's history class in college and that stuff wasn't in there. We have to go back to basics if we want to move forward.
I
Yeah.
love that sentiment.
Yeah.
Last thoughts, ladies. And I will send out, I knew today we'd be talking about the inauguration. I didn't send out any articles, but I will send out articles next week. Marcia, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, that we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the Capitol Police hero in the khaki coat that they gave that honor to, and he was so proud to do it, and I'm so glad that they recognized him, because there was like 1,000 to 1, so and people in the beginning were blaming the Capitol Police for not being prepared. They were no one prepared them, and no one gave them the backup for several hours, and that guy put his life on the line, and I'm so glad they gave him that honor.
Agreed. Paula, did you have something?
No, I'm good,
All
thanks.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining me today.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. I'll send out some articles. We'll have it'll be fascinating. It'll be like a whole week without Trump.
This was very cathartic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let it
Thank
out.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Vanessa. This is like, it's
Thank
like
you.
therapy. It's not just current events, because we have all this welled up inside us, and you give us an outlet, and I really appreciate it. I always feel so much better for like the whole week after we have this discussion.
Thank you. I was talking to my friends. I said, I'm leading this current events. I'm afraid I'm going to cry. And they're like, it's okay. You've got to get it out. It's been pent up for 4 years. It's okay. Marcia, thank you. Pamela, Susan, Paula, great seeing you. See you next week.
Thank you all.
All
Right. Thank you. Love you all. Love you, Susan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.